My name is Rahul Bharadwaj. I'm the owner and I'm also an engineer. I went vegan in 2020 and my reasons were health. So I had a chronic condition which I developed in 2011 is when I actually found out about it, that I had that condition. It was type 2 diabetes. And that was what led me to, suffer through that disease for 9 years. And 2020 was when I went vegan, and with a lifestyle change, I was able to completely reverse it. And it's been 4 years since I've been free of diabetes.
How did you get in a place where you had type 2 diabetes?
Me and my wife, we came to the United States in 2006, and we came here as students. When you're a student, you're necessarily not following a regime for eating. We were big meat eaters. The first place we went to was McDonald's when we landed in the US, our first meal. Even though growing up in India, and which is a very vegetarian country, it has a heavy vegetarian eating population. We were expecting something vegetarian or something that's not just beef, because I did not grow up eating beef, but I did eat a lot of other animals, which were okay to eat for me. Fast forward, we got immersed in the American culture, and we enjoyed everything, fast food to trying different restaurants, trying different cuisines. But then when you're a student, you're also doing it on a budget. That may also mean that you're not eating the most healthiest food. But when you're young, you're not necessarily thinking about the budget as much, but you're just eating whatever whenever you feel hungry. Grad school, you're kind of stressed. I was in a doctorate program, and it's pretty intense, and it really tests your limits emotionally, and also tests your limit just physically, mentally, all aspects of your life. So it's a stressful thing, and then getting a job after that and getting into corporate careers is the next thing. It doesn't make it any easier. And then 2011 is when I found out we were just getting some insurance, considering life insurance or whatever, and they just did a medical test on me, and I was like, my sugars were like off the charts. It was like 300 some. My blood sugar had gone up 300 some. So that's when I found out that I had this condition. I was like 30, and I was disappointed that this happened to me. It runs in our family in the sense my grandmother had it, my dad had it or has it, and then I got it in my 30s, and I just turned 30. So I was like, I was disappointed. I was kind of frustrated. Why? And then the answer was in front of me, but you never connect the dots that why it happened to me. I mean, you sort of know that you were leading an unhealthy lifestyle, but what are you going to do about it? I didn't have that. So in the 9 years, I traveled a lot. I excelled in my career, but it also came with a lot of stress, because any corporate job, you have tough deadlines. And then you have a family at home. So my wife was managing by herself. We had 2 kids. In those 9 years, I changed 5 endocrinologists. And every time I would change my endocrinologist, I would ask him or her, is this condition reversible? And the answer I got was, no, you have to kind of live with diet, exercise, it's a balance, but you'll have it for your life. So that was like a reality that I was slowly accepting. I got life insurance for the kids because I knew I would have to make sure that I have a plan if something happens to me. And then over the years, my blood sugar medication just kept going up. Because no matter how you try, and all those medications are trying to do is just they're just controlling your symptoms. It's not curing the root cause. So in 2020, Pia was at a friend's place. Pia is my wife, mm-hmm. And she's the one who over the years always motivated me to work out, but I felt I never had the energy to do it. And if you're struggling with diabetes, you just have enough energy to do the next test. At least that's how it was for me. And I had this chronic nerve pain in my lower back. I remember waking up with that every single day. In 2020, she went to a friend, Pia, my wife. Her friend is also is diabetic, and she had a book. And the book's title was Reverse Diabetes in 21 Days. She picked it up and asked if she could borrow it. She said, yeah, I haven't read it yet, but yeah, feel free to take it. She brought it home and showed it to me. I didn't react, and I didn't read it for 2 months. And then finally, I think we were having some challenge. She was asking me to pick up a book together, and then I was like, okay, the first book on my list is that book, so I'm going to read that. She kind of twisted my arm to do it. And I remember picking it up like one early morning, and I couldn't put it down. Because that book, I felt like it was written by a doctor. She has been practicing veganism since the early 80s. She's a medical doctor who, from the 80s, who has been preaching that plant-based diet can reverse diabetes, heart disease, a lot of chronic conditions that are very common today. And she runs a center in South India. It's called Sharan, S-H-A-R-A-N, Sharan. And I actually showcased that book in front of my restaurant. It's by the front corner. And then I felt like this doctor is talking to me, telling me what's wrong with my body right now and how can I fix it. It kind of presented the solution to me. And that was the day that I decided I'm doing this. And I'm the cook in the house. And so it was a lot easier for me. And Pia had already taken a decision that she wanted to go plant-based, and her reasons were different. That was the day that I decided I'm going to follow this regime. And the book gives you all the recipes you need to succeed. It doesn't like tell you, okay, do this, this, this. Being an engineer, I'm a chemical engineer by education, training, and experience. And I look at food and our body chemistry from the same standpoint as I understand things around me. So to me, I could connect what was chemically going on in the body when somebody's actually suffering from this condition. So on the 7th day, I had to cut my blood sugar medication into half.
On the 7th day?
Yes, 7th day of doing this. And
how did you know that? Did you consult with your doctor?
So the good thing I did was I bought those patches that connects with it's just put it on your back of your arm and it connects to an app. So that was something I had access to. Then I decided to use that in this program, that I'm gonna see in real time how is my blood sugar responding to all of the changes that I'm doing. So, and if anybody tries to follow it, I would recommend using that. Or you should be very disciplined with your blood sugar checking, which I was. I would check it 3 times a day, but you kind of needed more than 3 times a day. So anyway, I used to be on 6 pills a day, 4 for blood sugar medication, 1 for cholesterol, and 6th one for kidney protection, which is the same medication that's used for patients that have high blood pressure. So over time, my body got dependent. Although I didn't have blood pressure problems, it kind of depended on that. So it was hard for me I tried to take that medicine away, and my blood pressure would shoot up. So anyway,
you had to be very systematic maybe in your approach? In
my approach, yes, I had to. But blood sugar medications were easy. On the 7th day, I was in communication with my healthcare provider, and she told me, yeah, go half. And then on the 14th day, I had to stop my medication because my blood sugar was dropping, critically low. Because now I'm eating a good diet, which is not spiking my blood sugar, and then my medicine's working over that in dropping my blood sugar further down. So I had to stop. On the 14th day of that program was the last day I took blood sugar medication.
Wow. And what year was that?
That was 2020. And it's going to be actually 4 years next week is when it'll be. And then I periodically got tested as I used to before. Every 3 months you get your vitals done, your blood chemistry checked, what's elevated. And I saw this decline of cholesterol, my good cholesterol coming, where the ranges need to be, and everything kind of fell in place. And then I kept doing those tests, at least for the first year I did it quarterly, and then the following year I switched to half yearly for the next 2 years, and then now I just do it yearly checkup. And my A1C used to be I've seen it as high as 8.5, and now I'm at 5.2, and I've been in that range since 2020, and I've not looked back. I used to be 40 pounds heavier, so just losing the weight was just effortless. Yeah, it was easier, and I had the energy to go do some workout, because all this while Pia used to motivate me to work out, but I would tell her, yeah, I'm going to do that. But inside, I knew that I just don't have the energy to do it, let alone like get to the next task. And going on a plant-based diet, eating healthy, just removing all the processed foods from my diet, just removing all the animal products from my diet gave me that boost. Like it's like a cleanse that happens, your body resets. Something I did not know before going into this program is that every 21 days, your taste buds reset. So if you avoid something for 21 days, you're not going to crave it unless, like you just have a weakness for it. But after 21 days, with new taste buds, you can just train yourself to kind of, just
appreciate how like a plain food tastes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
without salt and sugar and extra fat or high fat foods.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always appreciated food. I have a good relationship with food. So I've enjoyed, like I've always been a chubby person all my life. Before I went vegan, I've always enjoyed like different foods and was like a heavy meat eater. So after high school, I had this, choices of either picking culinary school or engineering school. And my father, he pushed me on the engineering route, and I enjoyed that journey. But I always kept cooking, and my wife always encouraged me. She was kind of my guinea pig who always would give me good feedback, and I always like got the encouragement to maybe try new dishes. And being a engineer, I've always been in product development and R&D. I've always enjoyed that process of creating a concept. You think about a concept, you gather your raw materials, figure out the process, and then you perfect it once you want to launch the product.
So proof of concept.
Yeah, proof of concept, and then scaling, and then how do you launch it? So I really benefited from those disciplines in my career. So when I went vegan, for a time, short period in my life, I thought, oh no, I'm not going to do anything in culinary. I mean, I need to focus on my health, and my health was getting better. That's all I cared about at that time. But then, as you explore the plant-based universe, it's just it's like a rabbit hole. Like you can just find anything you're looking for from a flavor perspective, from a texture perspective, or from finding any additives or whatnot. The plant-based universe has so much to offer. It's just that the marketing companies just don't have the budget or the time to tell the world about it. So that's why we don't know.
Or they're already in bed with a routine, business as usual, and why change?
Yeah. And that was something that I did learn in the book, like how insurance companies, healthcare providers are kind of like, they will never lead you to a cure. And if you really are looking for a cure, you have to take things in your own hands. You have to find what works for you. It's amazing like how quickly, it took me like years and years of damage to the body to get to a sick state. And I suffered 9 years in that condition, but it took 21 days. So I felt like the body's so powerful, but you have to give it the conditions to heal. And to me, it's like, if you have to reset a machine at home, you always go to the restart button, run it, you flush the system, or you do certain things, and the machine is reset. Our bodies are no different. And, your digestion takes up the most amount of energy.
Along with your brain, I guess.
Yeah, brain is 20%, and I think digestion is what's taking up most of the energy. So when you have a heavy meal and you've got like all these animal proteins, because it takes more effort for your body to process animal proteins. So now if your body is there's a powerhouse somewhere taking those decisions, 20% is always reserved for the brain. Nobody's getting any of that. And then the rest of the 80%, digestion is going to take a big percent, but then now you're moving and you're running, and maybe your brain's taking more because you're thinking about something, or you're stressed or whatever. So then all the rest of the cells just don't get enough energy. So your body's telling you, okay, buddy, you need to lie down, sit, and we'll do this digestion for you, and then you'll be ready to go up again. And so you don't think about those things, but when you go to a healthier lifestyle or you pay attention to your own body, you start wondering about those things, and and you kind of connect the dots.
Yeah, especially when you're experiencing them and you're like, wow, and then you could read about it and it's just all so vividly clear, I'm sure. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing. Were there any other changes, like physiologically or mentally? You mentioned your weight changed, you mentioned your health got better, your cholesterol, your A1C and all that. Anything else that, before we switch gears?
I mean, I practice yoga, and I did a inner engineering course, which is a deep meditation technique that I learned. I did notice that doing like yoga or meditation, you feel lighter. There's just a lightness in my system. There are some things I can feel, but there is something more that's happening to the body that I cannot really put in words. It's like a calm, and I feel like
peace.
Yeah, like an inner peace, like eat a clean diet. You have to experience it. Like, it's hard to explain what those changes are. I did feel, because I was 40 pounds lighter, I was starting to get knee pain, which went away when I was lighter. I was obviously putting more stress on my joints, and my muscles were not as developed, if you will. So I was getting like a lot of knee pain.
What about like colds or anything? Any of that?
Oh yeah, my immunity did improve big time. I would always get spring allergies right around April and May, and it would be bad, like swollen eyes, upper respiratory tract. That has like minimized to where it's mostly sneeze or just a runny nose, which is actually every year progressively it's getting better. Yeah. When we moved to Iowa a couple of years ago, that's when I think I kind of had my first spring was kind of a little more challenging, but I found out from some of the local people that it's just like such a huge variety of trees and vegetation around you that, yeah. So first spring was kind of challenging, but yeah, this spring it's been just like how it was. But I saw a big change in my immunity. I would get sick easily, like catch cold if I'm around somebody sick, and now I just don't catch that. I'm usually the last person in the family to get sick, knock on wood. I would always like not be able to play with the kids as much. I found the energy to kind of play with them, wrestle with them, and just have more energy to do things, and felt like I was 15 years younger. Like, that's how I felt. That's how I remembered my body, like not waking up with that pain in the back. And I had kind of accepted that okay, this is it.
Normal.
Like, and so when I was able to reverse it, I felt like when growing up, we used to play those video games. In those video games, you would get that one up. If you knew where to click, you would just get this extra life that would sustain you. Like if you would. So I just felt like I just had another chance at life, that I just got this extra life. I just don't take it for granted. And life is uncertain. Anything can happen anytime. But when I was living with a chronic condition, I knew that this could be one of that reasons. And just having that thing drop from you, and when at one point of time in your life you just accepted it. That's what every doctor told me. You just gotta live with it, till.
It's very normal. It's just normal.
Yeah. I just got. So I felt this huge sense of like upliftment, that I felt like, wow, and there's like 10% of this population on Earth, is diabetic, and I would
That's
love
it?
to.
I thought it would be higher than that.
I mean, that are
mean
I
on the
think
entire
10%.
planet?
Yeah, an entire planet, like 8 billion people. Out of the 8 billion, you've got
In the U.S., it's probably higher than that.
It's higher, yes. And I think I looked at one of your videos that actually were really interesting statistics, where that number is very huge when you consider the pre-diabetics, and when your A1C actually starts to slip or go in that dangerous range. So I think that percentage is huge. So if I can share my journey with all the people who are suffering with this condition, because I know some people are in much worse conditions, but the beauty of the process is that no matter if you're type 1 diabetic or type 2 diabetic, whether you're on insulin or medication, this technique works. And I think the only condition is that you have to have pancreas in your body. Now, if it's surgically removed, then this technique may not work. Or there might be other ways you may have to supplement that. But as long as you have your pancreas in your body, this technique works. It doesn't matter how worse you are. It may take you a little longer, both books, and the other book I did not even get to it. That one of the other book was by Neil Bernard that I read afterwards. The first book was from an Indian doctor who has been doing this from the 80s. I also wanted to hear the approach of the West, where an American doctor who's had such a amazing resume. Both books give you the same message, that it doesn't matter if it's type 1 or type 2. No, whether you're insulin dependent or not. The only condition is you need to have your pancreas intact. No matter what stage you are in your diabetes. You've tried everything, I'm sure, different medications, different doctors, different procedures. All this book is asking you to do is let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food. And a lot of friends have told me over the years that I was such a big meat eater. I've fed them, at my house, or we have dined together and enjoyed our culinary experiences, and they tell me that this must be really hard for you to switch this. And I tell them that no, it's way easier, because what was hard for me was poking myself 3 times a day, watching my blood sugar, seeing what I can eat, what I cannot eat, going to a meeting, making sure I have taken my medication. And if I knew I was going to drink today, then making sure the dose that I take is appropriate. So for me, that was hard. Managing that with almost no energy in the body, that was hard. I don't want to do that ever again. This is way easy. You just gotta eat good food and clean food, and
you're also helping others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the process of this restaurant. I'm sure.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now restaurant is like a different, taking that on a different mission.
Yeah.
But definitely, yeah, you're right. Universe is so amazing. You can find every flavor, texture, whether it's sweet, salt, or just a certain kind of,
I'm sitting here. I have to say it. I'm going to do this. I'm eating. Yeah. So I'm so sorry.
But yeah, anyway. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Because your food is so incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And as I explored the plant-based universe, I found that everything I used to make can be recreated. You don't have to have a dead animal on your plate for it to be a satisfying meal. If you're looking for a certain kind of flavor or texture, if you love carbs, or if you love proteins, or if you love fiber or greens, or
fat,
whatever, yeah. Or even I would say, even fried food. There's a way of doing it. And another thing I've completely moved away from is processed foods and refined oils. Being a chemical engineer, I know how refining of oil is done. In simple terms, you take the first extract of the seed. A lot of books actually recommend not using oil. I think that's the best way to do it. But if you have to use the cold pressed. And then once the cold pressed oil is removed, the seed is then mixed with a solvent. It's usually an aggressive solvent that can get dissolved with the oils, takes all the oil out of the seed and dissolves it into this new compound, which then you just distill the solvent out, and now what's left is this oil. Now, what just happened is that this solvent actually is also, it's a carbon-based solvent. It's a hydrocarbon, and what you have oil is also, it's a carbon-based. So there is a chemical reaction that happens. So in a very simplistic terms, that happens when the solvent reacts with some of the byproducts that are in the oil. And now when you went through that extraction process and you distilled out the solvent, first thing is, in any extraction process, there's never 100% extraction. It's always 99%, 99.999. You can purify it. What's happened is that the chemistry of the oil is changed. It's no longer that oil that came from a seed or a certain plant source. Its chemistry is altered forever. And now you go ahead and consume it, that chemical will get retained in your body, and it's going to impact your health in some shape, way, or form. When it's refined, I mean, so oils are all, I think Dr. Bernard also says this, that oils are like the juice, fruit juice, how you would enjoy a glass of fruit juice once in a while if it's freshly squeezed, but would you drink it all day? You would much rather eat the fruit to have the fiber with it, the other good vitamins and everything that's in it because nature has packed everything in the right proportion. When you eat that, it keeps you healthy. Seed is the same way. Seed is, it's the most potent part of the plant because it has the genetic information to recreate itself. And you take the oil or the juices from that and you leave everything else, and now you're taking such a concentrated version of that. So it's good, it's flavorful. At least the virgin oils are. Refined oils, on the other hand, you take that, you taste it. I bet only certain oils that are very pungent will actually register a taste. Otherwise, it's just going to be like you just put something very viscous on your tongue. And at least for me, that's what I taste when I taste a refined oil. We don't deep fry. We air fry. So and all the oils we use are cold pressed, organic, virgin oils. And that's something that we had determined to do, like in the restaurant. Is like we are not going to do anything that we don't do in our home kitchen. As plain as that. And we stopped deep frying, I think, back when we went vegan, and just removed like all of the junk from our diet, things that were responsible for making us sick over a period of time. And it's funny, like you find so many people who are lactose intolerant. I was not lactose intolerant, but I never liked milk. Like I remember, like as growing up, my parents forcing me to drink milk, and the only time that I've had milk is like when I'm super hungry and there's nothing else. Like I just chug the milk to just kind of satisfy my hunger. But I've never liked milk and dairy products. The only dairy product that I've liked is yogurt, that I used to really like before I went vegan, and I didn't care for milk as much, but I did like ice cream and all of the nice things that are made from milk. And it's interesting to just think about milk in a very different way, like how the planet consumes it right now. Milk, the default is like cow milk, and nobody thinks about another animal, maybe some other animals too. That mind shift. And there's a documentary that was like kind of eye-opening for me, and this is for the vegetarians who are dairy consumers. It's the dairy industry that sustains the meat industry, and not the other way. Because
there's a 5-minute video called "Dairy is Scary."
Oh, okay.
It's only 5 minutes.
Okay, I want to watch
that. And it covers it so well. But yeah, go on. What is the documentary you're referring to?
This one is called Mother's Milk.
Yeah, it's a newer one, right?
Yeah, and it's made in India and free on YouTube, by the way. Okay. So anyone can go watch it. But the amazing part is that it's breaking the myth that India, being a dairy-heavy country, tells you why India is obsessed with dairy, and why India kind of became like the biggest dairy consumer on the planet. It is actually predominantly vegetarian, but heavy dairy consuming. But the meat growing population is increasing because a heavy influence of the social media, just sharing a lot of recipes. I think meat eating, it's just taken on a whole new level. Like you see the fogo de chao kind of, the Brazilian steakhouse where, you go sit down, you basically pay for one person, and there's unlimited bottomless meat. They'll bring every animal there is. And so a lot of places have opened up in India that have that same concept. You basically can just eat how much ever meat you want to eat.
Kind of like a buffet.
Yeah, buffet, and then they'll just, till you, I think, do something like put a flag up or something, they'll just keep bringing food on your table. So, but being a vegetarian society, why isn't India, a healthy country? Why aren't the statistics? Because, the answer is simple. It's just heavy dairy consumption, and dairy has more or less the same effect on your body as when you consume meat, because it's just in liquid form.
Yeah, liquid meat.
Liquid meat or liquid cells. That documentary, Mother's Milk, I recommend watching that. It tells you why.
Now, how much of this is ethical? Because you've mentioned health a lot. Is any of this ethical? I know it wasn't maybe in the beginning, but has it become ethical?
What?
Ethical as in like for the animals.
I started there.
You started with health.
With health. And then I think later on the compassion came. I was watching a video. It was a documentary that Pia made everybody in the family watch. It's called Dominion. It poses a very difficult question to everybody. Just because you can, should you? And that was kind of like and we had just gotten 2 puppies in the house, and there was another video I was watching which was like, if you kind of look at your pet but you also go have another animal for dinner, how do you distinguish? And that question, I think, really took root in my mind and my heart. I was like, yeah, who decided that? Like, okay, dogs is man's best friend, so they get the privilege to live with us, but cows, they can live in a house, so yeah, then they've got enough meat. So, but anyway, the point is that we have our own logic in things, and things that have been done for centuries does not mean that those things are right. You have to question. Times change, everything changes with time, and lifestyles are different. How food gets on your table today, there's just so much suffering in that food. Say this, and maybe this is Pia's line, that how can a meal that comes from a tortured soul nourish your body? Which also was very powerful for me in understanding why the compassion side is so important in this equation. Like, again, just because you can, should you?
Yeah.
And living in today's times, you're not hunter-gatherers anymore. We don't hunt and gather. We just gather stuff from the grocery store. And then if you can choose from aisles and aisles of food, what would you choose? I think, a meal that's without any violence, any day. Everybody would want to do that, but a lot of people don't know how. I think that's where you get stuck.
Now, having a restaurant that doesn't serve any meat, eggs, or dairy, have you had any kickback from the community, or have they been supportive? How's that going?
We haven't focused a lot on the vegan aspect. We always, because there's also a negative association to vegan. So we have said plant-based, organic, locally sourced. A lot of times people walk in, they have our food, and they come for 4th or 5th time, and they're like, okay, I just want regular milk in my coffee. And they realize that, oh, this is a plant-based cafe. And the look on their face is just priceless. I just love that people have been to our cafe not knowing that we're a plant-based cafe.
Or that you're vegan.
Yeah, we're vegan. And so there has been we do get customers who come in and they're disappointed that we don't have any meat or any dairy products. A lot of them, I would say 98% of them stay and just try to figure out and try our food. But yeah, you do get some people who are just looking for their meal. And 10 years ago, if I was that person, maybe I would have done the same, because I was not educated and I didn't know. And
was there ever a time before you did all this that you thought there's no way I could do this?
Yeah. Like, I think we watched Forks Over Knives when we had our first, when we had our son. I mean, I watched through that thing, and the message I took home was, okay, I gotta eat cleaner. So, less oil, less meat. Let's get rid of the red meat. We'll eat better meats. We'll eat organic. We'll try to clean up. So it was a process, but everybody has to connect their dots. No matter, you only believe in it when you've experienced it. And for me, it was when I read the book, and a doctor is telling me that the thing that I've been struggling with for the last 9 years, there's a solution out there. I was like, okay, I am doing this today, right now. And I went in the kitchen and made breakfast. And
so what's a typical day or an ideal day of eating like for you?
For me, I'm moving to a more yogic lifestyle. I've moved from like 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day. If I'm at the cafe, then I'm usually eating, a balanced meal with grain, protein, fiber, which, is the way we have designed our dishes. We keep in mind not to overdo carbs in a dish, or not to overdo sweet or something. We don't use processed sugars, and so for me, it's usually a healthy bowl of brown rice with. I love to mix different curries. There's a dish on our menu which has everything that's made on it is different every day. At least 4 things in it are different. It's like a platter. That's usually my meal. There is usually enough protein, enough carbs, fiber, and fat in that meal to sustain me through the day. And then
Before you opened the restaurant, what
Yeah.
were you doing at home?
we would do a lot of Mexican food, like tacos. It's so easy to just veganize anything, really. 75% of the cooking that we do at home is Indian derived, or it would have some influence of Indian food. And then 25% is international. So we would do a lot of stir fry. I do sushi that I learned. I used to love sushi, which was something I thought that I was never gonna be able to recreate it. And stir fries. I love a lot of Thai food, Thai curries, and look at the things you love to eat. If you just take that piece of meat out, and that's how I look at any product that I need to, or any dish that I need to veganize. Just get rid of the meat first, and then I would substitute that with another protein. There are a lot of proteins. You can go with natural proteins, which are grown naturally, which are beans, legumes, lentils, a big variety there, and then. Or you can go to some of the processed
Boca crumbles.
That, or good source, organic tofu, tempeh. You have so many options today. You just have to look in the right place.
So I heard you mention beans, which there's a variety of beans to choose from.
Yeah.
You mentioned lentils. Those are all legumes. You mentioned tofu, tempeh. Those are all soy. You covered the legume category pretty good. And what about grains?
I like brown rice. So if you give me white rice and brown rice, I'm gonna always go for the brown rice. Even though I do like the taste of white rice, but I feel better when I eat brown rice. And then we also use millets. Millets are they're gaining popularity slowly. And you can actually use a lot of the beans as your grain, in the sense like the crepe that you had. It's made with rice and lentils, and so you can change those proportions to where it's just made out of lentils. And lentils pack carbs and properties that are provided by, say, a grain. Maybe not in that same ratio, but in a different ratio, because lentils will be more protein and less starch. And the proportions are different. You can sometimes even remove grain from your meal, and
But it's good to have a variety of both.
Sure.
Probably, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned
Oats.
brown rice and millet and oats.
Yeah, oats.
I like groat oats, the whole groat oat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are fun. Any
Chickpea.
others? Chickpeas are a legume, I guess.
Legume, but we use the flour of
Yeah.
chickpea to make our gluten-free crust of pizzas that we do.
Nice.
Is chickpea based. So, and essentially, that's the main. So in my mind, it's doing the same thing as a grain does,
Yeah.
but a lot more healthier.
Well, grains are healthy, so they have like a different
Sure.
amino acid profile than the legumes, and they kind of balance each other out to where you get the whole protein requirement. In theory, I suppose.
Yeah. So there are like a lot of grains in our pipeline
Yeah.
that we want to explore.
Yeah.
It's just that they're under development right now. So
Like kamut, farro, barley.
barley
teff.
is one. We're also working with like organic, non-GMO corn. Because corn's I really like corn, and cornbread is really popular in India, and it's paired well with a lot of dishes that I know we create in our at our restaurant. There are different varieties of millets. There's, I think, regular millets, then there's finger millet, and I believe there's another variety.
And then, so we've covered the legumes and the grains, and then greens.
We have the advantage of being in Fairfield, where organic farming and local farmers are there are so many, and every Saturday there's a farmers market. So we source our vegetables from the local farmers here. And there's just day and night different when you get organic from store versus organic from your local farmer. We do a lot of chards, kale, spinach. I think there's a cross between spinach and chards. I just don't know what it's called, but it's available at the farmers market. You know, we
Romaine ever? Do you use romaine?
in our house,
Yeah.
we
That's fine.
we use salad leaves, you know, like romaine lettuce, romaine heart, or iceberg. You know, those the regular salad.
So you got your greens, your grains, your legumes, and you mentioned veggies, but what kind of veggies?
So vegetables, we like to rely on what's in season. A lot of squashes, zucchini, cauliflower, carrots, cabbage. We are working with sweet potatoes, but yeah, potatoes, mushrooms, a lot of local mushrooms. One of the members on our team is actually they're a professional forager. We've had amazing oyster mushrooms, pink, black, yellow over the last season.
Lion's mane?
Lion's mane, yeah, some. So we have a wide variety of sources for our vegetables.
So legumes, greens, grains, veggies, mushrooms, fruits.
In our home, like all the time. Like we love fruits. We're like a house that snacks on fruits. Like our fruit baskets always. I think me and my wife are obsessed. Like when it runs low, we just gotta run to the grocery store. We try to eat berries, you know, whatever. I mean, nowadays when you go to the organic aisle, you know, there's just limited things you can do because there's going to be oranges, apples, pears, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. They're always going to be there in season, but we love going to like you pick farms that are close by, or just going and getting things from the farmers market, like the local pawpaws in Iowa, which I think are making their way into the commercial stores. We love mangoes, you know, which don't grow in Iowa, but
Legumes, greens, grains, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, nuts and seeds.
yeah, nuts and seeds, yeah. We do use nuts. We have to be careful with nuts. My son has a tree nut allergy.
Is that all nuts or just certain
Just
ones?
tree nuts, which is, tree nuts are walnuts, pecans, hazelnuts. These three nuts he's has a severe allergy to, but other nuts he can easily eat, like cashew nuts, almonds, and other nuts he's fine. So we have chosen to eliminate at least the tree nuts. And there's someone on our team who also has tree nut allergy, so it makes sense for us to kind of choose the
Don't almonds grow on trees?
They do, but so when my son had an allergy test, they were not part of that group for some reason. So yeah, you're right though. You know, it's funny how they define the nuts.
And seeds.
Yeah. So
These are really important for your fats. So seeds, any in particular?
a lot of seeds go into Indian cooking,
Yeah.
like fenugreek seeds, mustard seeds, cumin seeds, but they're more on the spice side, so the volume's probably low to get the benefits. But we use a lot of pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds. Pia's an amazing baker, and she does these granolas that my daughter's obsessed with. So every time we run, that jar is low, she's going to twist her arm to make a fresh batch, and then so she incorporates all of those good seeds and everything.
The only last two categories are herbs and spices.
I remember every time my mom would come to visit, she would say, you know, your spice rack is like 10 times bigger than my spice rack. We use quite a bit of spices, being from India. You're just born into that, and I always enjoyed just watching my mom cook, and you know, just wonder about what does that do to the dish. And always like the chemical engineer in me would always like think about like what would it be if you isolate that or do this versus that, or change ratios.
So any in particular, like I love adding clove, cardamom, and Ceylon cinnamon to my oatmeal, and then throughout the day I like to add like parsley, sage, rosemary, thyme to things. But how does it roll for you?
Yeah, we have all of those, you know, parsley, rosemary, thyme that go into our pizza.
Yeah, okay.
Pizza sauce, dough, or just like seasoning on the top. And then a lot of the traditional Indian spices like turmeric, cloves, cinnamon, black pepper, cumin, mustard. Yeah, there are just so many seeds that are used in our everyday cooking, and every spice has its own medicinal property. Reminds me of that "let food be thy medicine" quote.
Has there been any kickback with family at all, or have they been receptive? Have you been able to convert anybody in the family or anything like that?
That's a great question. My father is he also had, like I said initially, he had diabetes, and he was able to reverse it. Like initially, they were like, "This must be
A
like
fluke.
something, or like a temporary thing. They're trying something new, and then they'll probably come back to." They saw me like change, and like me and my wife like kind of transform ourselves, and then they were curious, and we were able to convince them to try this, and now he's off his medication.
Wow,
and yeah, and
I bet you're really proud of that.
yeah, I really am. And then every time I hear the word like diabetes in a conversation, I just don't hold back or feel shy. I just go and talk to them and tell them, hey, there's a cure out there if you ever want to find it. Because a lot of times people are like,
Like you in the beginning.
Yeah, Pia came up with this theory that three things need to happen if you're trying to do something groundbreaking with your health or whatever. One is you need to have the knowledge to do what you need to do, and second is the willingness. You need to have that internal fire,
Like
that
a purpose.
Yeah, you need to do it like. And the third, the facilitation. So it's the knowledge, your inner resolve, and then the facilitation. When those three things align, that's when magic happens and groundbreaking things happen. Because I had the knowledge, but maybe I didn't have the facilitation, and I didn't have that motivation until I read a book that felt like that doctor was talking to me, like, hey, don't worry.
This
like
can really
this,
happen.
yeah, this can happen, and I know what's going on with you, and like, you really are reading an author who knows exactly what's going in your body. Like, you feel these things, and my doctor's appointments. Everybody knows how those are. Yeah, any questions? Just let us know, and they're like 15-minute stops. That's exaggerating. It's usually like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Check numbers, blah blah blah. Okay, I'm upping this dose. I'm doing this. Everything else okay. But this time, like first time, I felt somebody's like reaching out to me and telling me, hey, there's a cure out there.
Now, with your father, were you just able to influence him by being an example, or did you have to persuade him in other ways? Did you have talks with him, give him some reading material? Were you pushy at all?
Yeah, I was kind of pushy with him, but then he came to visit me a couple of years ago, like me and my mom, and that's when I gave him that book. I tried to get it to him, but it just didn't work out. But yeah, I made him read it, and then that, I think, kind of planted that seed, and he saw me kind of change, and
That's awesome.
and he saw the results.
That's beautiful, man. So do you have a quote you want to share?
One is let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. It's so simple. That's by the Hippocrates, and Hippocrates is the oath that all our medical doctors take. And I think in that process, they probably read that line somewhere, but I think they don't implement it. And it's so simple. I think that's how nature works. If you look at wild animals, that's how they work. That's their medicine, that's their food, and vice versa. And the second one would be like, just because you can, should you? In reference to eating animals. Or
if somebody wants to look you up online, I guess they could go to your website for your restaurant, right?
Handle on Instagram's Mira's Cafe Iowa, and then also www.miras-cafe.com, 112 North Main Street, Fairfield, Iowa.
Any future plans? Any new things in the future you might want to try to do? A second location?
Yeah, that's sort of in the talks right now, and then we are also looking at doing something in the vegan protein industry. In the sense, it's a growing market, and we are looking to develop some products here. So in my mind, this is like a lab that has so many customers who give you daily feedback that we can develop some products that can then be scaled, and it's a fast-growing market. But we also want to be mindful of what products we use. But I just don't want to create it with gluten, for example, because gluten, a lot of people are getting away from gluten. So we want to do it in a way where it's going to be sustainable in the future.
and accessible. The lighting has changed a little bit because I just finished interviewing your wife.
Thanks for coming back for this.
Yeah, nice. And we almost failed to just kind of showcase here what was so helpful for you in your journey. Let's see what you got there.
Yeah, so I have 2 books here. This is the first book that I read. This is the book that kind of I just couldn't put it down. Like the author, and it's written by a doctor who has been practicing veganism since the 1980s, early 1980s, where veganism didn't even exist. And this second book is by Dr. Neil Barnard. He's a more popular name in the world, but I wanted to get the perspective of an American doctor who's also preaching the same things. And I found so many similarities in both books. They've referenced each other.
Oh, wow.
And they reference a lot of peer-reviewed journals. Being an engineer and also a scientist, I feel like I value peer-reviewed journals so much. So much data out there, scientifically proven studies that show how a plant-based diet can change your life completely, especially if you're trying to do it for health reasons. So.
And then one thing that came up when I was interviewing your wife, could you have done this without her?
It would have been tough, but I think I could have done it without. Like I've reached a point in my life, like I know myself, that I would have, like looking at the benefits. Because you have to remember, a lot of people are going through sicknesses or some difficulty because of eating too much meat and dairy, but that's their journey alone. If you just be conscious enough that this change is going to improve yourself, and if you're a better version of yourself, you're going to be a better husband, better parent, better, everything. So yeah, I mean, I would have, and I think it was easier for me because I do the cooking at home. So if I was not, I think it would have been maybe I would have a different answer. But also it's also in today's world, if you have to look up any recipe, just go to YouTube, like Pia was saying.
Yeah.
You type the recipe you want to veganize. Yeah.
Or Google.
Google. And if you don't like tofu, for example, look for like no tofu. You'll find the recipe. Like there's just like so much out there. And by the way, both of these books actually have amazing recipes on the back in the end. So they just don't give you the tools, but they also tell you how to do it. So check these books out, and this has more American palate recipes, and this would be more Indian and more international, global recipes. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Good job, and this food was amazing.